your devices.
Wow, you guys are lifesavers.
That's what you think.
In action.
The Walking Dead Dead City, exclusively on AMC and AMC+.
Whether it's our stories, the warmth of our laugh, or our family's secret sauce, we all bring something different to the table. So make some space. The power of connection is waiting right outside your comfort zone. Learn how you can help strengthen your community at belongingbeginswithus.org/teamup.
Spectrum News Plus. Local stories, connecting communities. Streaming now on the Spectrum News app and free with your Spectrum subscription.
I'm Sharon Tazwell. Here's your Spectrum News in 90. U.S. stocks slid Friday following news of President Trump's latest tariff policy, as well as a lower than expected July jobs report. 26 countries will be subject to tariffs higher than 15%, including Canada, which now faces a 35% tax. Democrats are criticizing the president's plan, saying Americans will feel financial impacts.
That will raise costs that will be paid by American consumers and that will harm our families, budgets, and economies.
Meanwhile, hiring slowed in July, with the U.S. economy adding just 73,000 jobs. That Labor Department report is lower than what most economists expected. The unemployment rate rose slightly, but remains near historic lows. The president questioned the report and has fired the Commissioner of Labor Statistics. The administration is defending its policies.
We expect, we expect things to get materially stronger from here now that our policies are starting to place.
And Jeffrey Epstein's accomplice, Ghislaine Maxwell, has been moved to a lower security federal prison in Texas. The move comes a week after Maxwell met with top DOJ officials over the Epstein case. Maxwell was sentenced to 20 years for carrying out a scheme with Epstein to sexually abuse underage girls. And that is a look at your Spectrum News in 90.
Big Deal. I'm Errol Lewis, national political anchor at Spectrum News. This program focuses on the future of our country and its people. This week, the big deal is President Trump's new punishing tariff rates imposed on America's largest trading partners. Dozens of countries with no trade deals face new taxes on goods sold in the U.S., including Canada, the European Union, and Japan. Meanwhile, some other nations have reached agreements to bring down the president's original tariff rates, while other partners, including China and Mexico, have received an extension and are still negotiating their own deals. Now, all this uncertainty led to a slump in the stock market on Friday, just days after the major indexes had reached record high levels. Meanwhile, members of Congress are back in their districts meeting with constituents over the summer break. Republicans are touting the popular aspects of President Trump's massive spending plan, while Democrats are highlighting the bill's cuts, which will affect millions of Americans. We'll get to all of that and more. But first, here's what President Trump had to say about the new tariffs.
You're a betting man. How many of these tariff rates could change again now and next month?
Not a lot. I mean, for the most part, we're set. A little bit, maybe. If somebody could convince us that, they have a case, like Switzerland was complaining, but we lose $40 billion a year with Switzerland. We had to do that.
Joining me now are two top political analysts. Alex Cohen is a political anchor for Spectrum News Plus, based in Southern California, and James Barragan is a political anchor for Spectrum News 1 in Austin, Texas. And Alex, let me start with you. An analysis of President Trump's tariff policy found that these new taxes cost California businesses and consumers an estimated $11 billion from January through May. That's the most of any state. Texas was second at $6 billion. With these new tariffs that have just been announced, will prices go up even higher for consumers?
I think the answer to that, Errol, is yes. The big questions, of course, being when, by how much, and for which goods and items. One report out of Yale said Americans could expect to pay on average more than 18% on goods than they're paying now. And the really tricky part is we're expecting to see price increases on a lot of the things that a lot of Americans like to buy: food and drink, wine, clothing items. We just recently saw Procter & Gamble saying that they're going to have to raise the price on many of their household items. So I think the big question is, how much will consumers tie this back to these tariffs from President Trump, Errol?
Okay, now, James, the other big deal in the headlines this week was Texas Republicans unveiling a new set of congressional maps at the request of President Trump. These new maps would create 5 more districts that are likely to elect Republicans to the House of Representatives in the midterm elections. And these new congressional lines really bank on Latino voters showing up for Republican candidates. Explain what they're up to.
Well, yeah, Texas Republicans were thrilled with the outcome of the last election, where President Trump increased his margins with Latino voters, particularly in South Texas. So they're really banking, as you said, on that trend continuing. So there's a couple of races down in the valley in South Texas that include Congressional District 34 and 28 with incumbents Henry Cuellar and Vicente Gonzalez. But this is not without a risk, because experts say that even though Latinos went for Trump and some in a small way went for Republicans in these districts, those Democratic incumbents survived. So they could potentially win those districts again because Trump is not on the ballot and there will be no help from up ballot. We will have to wait and see what these maps actually look like and what the atmosphere looks like when the November 2026 elections come.
Okay, and so picking up on that, Alex, mid-decade redistricting is actually pretty rare. But now Democratic governors all around the country are preparing to respond to Texas by redrawing their congressional lines. I spoke to New York's Governor Kathy Hochul this week, and she said she's considering changing the state constitution that would allow New York to redraw congressional lines. How is California's Governor Gavin Newsom responding to all of this?
Well, Errol, you might remember a time when movie star Arnold Schwarzenegger was our governor. And back then, 15 years ago, he helped introduce the idea of an independent redistricting commission, which has been in place for quite some time here. Originally, Gavin Newsom said, well, maybe he'll try to maneuver this through the legislature. Now he's talking about bringing this back to voters who approved that independent commission. He has set the date for the first Tuesday in November and emphasized that this would just be a temporary redistricting for the next few elections. But it'll be interesting to see if Californians really have the appetite for this. Governor Newsom has said he's not comfortable with just sitting in the fetal position as Texas considers this move. But it's unclear whether or not California voters feel the same way about changing the rules up in the middle of the game, so to speak.
Oh, okay. Now, James, let me change the topic here. I want to get an update on Texas's recovery from those deadly floods back in July. I wanted in particular to know how the Trump administration and their rapid response to that Texas disaster is contrasting with the trouble that other states are having with federal recovery assistance.
Well, it certainly has been noteworthy. We had DHS Secretary Kristi Noem here the day after the floods happened. We had a presidential visit with the First Lady. So there certainly is a closeness between Texas and the White House on this front. And that's because he has so much political support here in Texas. Governor Abbott has been very close with him throughout these floods and the recovery. Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick was his victory chair here in Texas for both of his wins. So there is a closeness there, and there is a contrast with our friends in California and how the disaster response is going for them. Here, we're getting the aid as quickly as possible, and they have talked about that close relationship. So it does seem to be benefiting us, where it maybe is hurting some Democrat-led states.
Okay. And now, James, just at the local level, this tragedy that swept through an area where I know they had a lot of summer camps, a lot of young people who were lost and so forth. Are there plans to rebuild, or are they going to kind of declare that area off limits to redevelopment and rebuilding?
That's one of the big questions, Errol, and the governor has said he wants to rebuild, but importantly, he has said he wants to rebuild better. So there will be questions. Should we be building on floodplains? Should we be doing things differently? And yesterday there actually was a local hearing in Kerrville where there was some debate about whether the response was adequate. We will keep learning more, and I'm sure lawmakers will take all of that into account as they continue to try and rebuild.
Okay, James Barragan and Alex Cohen, thank you both very much. We're going to take a short break now, and when we come back, we'll tell you all about the changes that are coming to SNAP, the Federal Food Assistance Program, and how it could affect millions of Americans. Stay with us.
Spectrum Noticias, we recognize that our community is vibrant and diverse.
Spectrum Noticias delivers balanced coverage of the stories that matter in our communities and across the country.
Our journalists are based in the neighborhoods we cover, ensuring you get in-depth reporting on what's happening in the places we call home.
So join us at Spectrum Noticias. We're always on, always there for you.
Now available on your TV. Check your local listings. Also available on the Spectrum News app.
Bring it to the party. Bring it to the top. Bring it to the party. Never gonna stop.
Enjoy. Unwind. Connect. With Spectrum TV On Demand. From the latest hit movies you've been waiting to watch to your favorite comfort shows and more, all available instantly for you to stream. Create the all-around entertainment experience you've always wanted with Spectrum TV On Demand. Browse over 80,000 on-demand titles today.
Being a cowboy, I don't know anything different. I had a very successful career. Life was fast. I was preparing physically. I wasn't doing anything mentally. And then I got hurt. I dug into mental health. I wanted to be better as a person. I start my day with a workout. I live life 8 seconds at a time. Find a place to stop and just breathe. Love your mind.
I'm Sandra, this is Jorge, and we were adopted in 2019. I remember when they first came to us, Michael was already a teenager. The whole cliche of they're so lucky to have you guys, and it's the other way around. They have changed our family for the better. They chose to love us. They didn't have to. They chose us. Family.
Learn about adopting a teen from foster care. You can't imagine the reward. Visit adoptuskids.org.
Watching The Big Deal, where we are continuing to analyze President Trump's tax and spending law and what it will mean for everyday American families. Today, we're taking a closer look at changes to the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, SNAP for short, the federal food aid program formerly known as food stamps. Right now, about 42 million Americans living in 22 million households receive SNAP benefits. To put that in context, that's 1 out of every 8 people in the United States. The average household benefit is about $350 a month. The president's spending plan will cut SNAP funding by $187 billion over the next 10 years. And receiving food assistance will now include work requirements and require states to pick up some of the federal program's cost starting in 2028. All told, these cuts mean that millions of Americans will be at risk of losing some or all of their benefits, which could lead to increased food insecurity all around the nation. Spectrum News reporter Natalie Basha spoke to one grandmother in California and has this report.
As she shops for groceries, 59-year-old Dion Watts is thinking about what to make for dinner tonight. After all, she has to feed her 5 granddaughters who live with her, and that's a lot of mouths to feed.
The avocados is for the toast that the kids make in the morning time for breakfast. Then they may make an egg to go with the, on top of the toast with the avocado. And the berries is for the 3-year-old.
But in her head, Dion is counting every dollar. She receives money from SNAP, the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, just $200 a month. And to make that stretch, Dion says, is tricky. So tricky that she sometimes goes without food.
It might happen 3 times a week because I don't want to eat it up from them because I know that they're going to need it when they come home. So I will go hungry. I have went hungry so they could have enough.
But on July 4th of this year, President Donald Trump signed into law his big, beautiful bill, which includes a $200 billion cut to the SNAP program set to take place over the next 10 years. President Trump's administration says the cut is necessary to curb government spending and to shift the responsibility of SNAP to states. But according to Food Access LA, that proposed cut puts 5 million California families at risk.
For an example, a family of maybe 5 or 6 rely on a bag of apples 3 days. That might not last them those 3 days anymore.
Desiree Patillo is the district manager of Mother's Nutritional Center in Los Angeles, and she says cuts to SNAP would have an obvious and immediate result.
You know, junk food is cheaper than fruit and vegetables, sadly to say. And I'm quite sure that that would be the result of if in the case that the benefits were to be reduced.
There's so many other things that you could cut. Why do you want people to starve?
Natalie Basha, Spectrum News.
Joining me now with more on this is Elaine Waxman, a senior fellow at the Urban Institute, a nonpartisan policy research organization. Ms. Waxman specializes in food insecurity and federal nutrition programs. And Ms. Waxman, President Trump's bill is going to make it more difficult for Americans to qualify for SNAP benefits. Your research at the Urban Institute estimates that more than 22 million families could lose some or all of their benefits. Is there a particular category of recipient who would be at risk?
That's a great question because at some level, everybody who participates in SNAP will be affected. In particular, we have lost the ability to periodically update the market basket upon which benefits are based. And that's important because currently, in 99% of U.S. counties, the maximum SNAP benefit falls short of the cost of a very moderately priced meal. So SNAP was already inadequate, and we won't be able to dig ourselves out of that hole. In terms of who else is affected, we have expanded work requirements on folks with teenage children. That's new. We've not had parents involved in that before. And also older adults, 59 to 64. The problem is that it's hard to meet work requirements in the low-wage labor market. So people may often be working, but they work seasonal labor, their hours are cut by employers. And so what that means is if they don't meet the requirement consistently, they can only get 3 months of SNAP benefits in a 3-year period.
This is going to mark the biggest cut to the SNAP program since it began back in 1939. Why did the federal government first start providing food benefits? This is during the Great Depression, of course. And how has it improved health for recipients over the years?
Yeah, you know, early on in the Great Depression, it was a response to huge economic dislocation. But over time, we've learned that food insecurity affects a wide swath of people in the United States. And right now, actually, we have as many food insecure people nearly as we did at the peak of the Great Recession. So we're already going into this stretch in a not good position. I think that we will see it in terms of health impacts because we know that SNAP reduces food insecurity, that it improves outcomes for people with chronic illness, and it reduces healthcare expenditures by a factor of about $1,400 a year. So we will feel it and see it in our communities, even if, you know, we ourselves are not affected.
I want to come back to something you touched on, and that was underscored in the story from California we just saw. Even before the latest cut, SNAP benefits were not sufficient to feed a family. I mean, we saw this woman, $200 a month is not enough to feed a grown woman with 5 kids. And you found that the maximum SNAP benefit does not cover the cost of a modestly priced meal in 99% of the nation's counties. Is that deliberate? Is the inadequacy a deliberate feature of the program?
I think some people would argue yes, that people have viewed SNAP as a supplement, but in fact, for 4 out of 10 households, it is the only resource they have to purchase food. Their expenses and their income mean that they have 0 income available for a food budget. So that's really profound when you put individuals like that at risk. The grandmother that you spoke with was obviously trying to purchase healthy foods, but healthy foods are a risk. They are perishable. They are more expensive. Tariffs on food may increase the cost of those. And so the kinds of inadequacy we've seen will probably only increase.
Okay. Thank you very much for all of that information and insight. Elaine Waxman, thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
We are not done just yet. Coming up next, we'll talk about the heated race to represent the state of North Carolina in the U.S. Senate. Stay with The Big Deal.
The stories that touch our border affect us all. That's why at Spectrum News Plus, we don't just cover these communities. Our dedicated reporting team also calls them home. That perspective allows us to take an in-depth look, going beyond the politics, to see the impact on people's lives and what it means for you and your community. Balanced border coverage that tells the full story here on Spectrum News Plus. Available on all your favorite devices, exclusively on Spectrum.
Spectrum with Paramount Plus is the entertainment destination.
You're gonna love this.
Getting oil out of the ground is the most dangerous job in the world.
It's so good to see you.
Come on!
Right now, I am in first gear. Would you like to see me shift to 6?
Stream a mountain of the entertainment you love on Paramount Plus. Included in Spectrum TV Select plans at no extra cost.
What are you doing in there?
What's that?
I wouldn't do that. What are you doing? What are you looking for?
Mom was always organized, but she started forgetting to pay her bills on time.
And she'd buy the same gifts over and over.
Telling the girls about my Alzheimer's diagnosis was really hard.
At first we had our cries, but then we were like, okay, let's make a plan.
Early detection gave us time to adapt together.
It's so important for you to think about what you can do and making the most of what you have.
If you or your family are noticing changes, it could be Alzheimer's. Talk about seeing a doctor together.
Thanks for staying with The Big Deal. With the midterm elections more than a year away, we will be reporting on the pivotal races that will determine the balance of power in Congress. Right now, Republicans hold 53 seats in the U.S. Senate, along with Vice President J.D. Vance, who holds a tie-breaking vote. That means Democrats would need to flip at least 4 seats to take control of the chamber next year. And their path to a Senate majority runs through the state of North Carolina. That's where Republican Senator Thom Tillis announced that he will not be seeking re-election. There are already 2 frontrunners in that race. Michael Whatley is the chairman of the Republican National Committee, and Roy Cooper, the former Democratic governor of the state. Joining me now is the man who knows more about this than anybody, Tim Boyum, Boyum, the Spectrum News political anchor based in Raleigh, North Carolina. And Tim, this week, Michael Whatley formally announced his candidacy, but he's never run for elected office before, even though he's the head of the RNC. Meanwhile, former Democratic Governor Roy Cooper has won 6 statewide elections, even when President Trump won the state. What do we need to know about these two candidates?
Yeah, it's a huge contrast here. It's fascinating. Roy Cooper has been in office essentially since the 1980s, and Michael Whatley's worked on campaigns essentially since the 1980s. One of his first campaigns that he worked on when he was still in high school was Jesse Helms' re-election back in 1984, which was probably the most famous U.S. Senate campaign up until this one now, which is likely going to go down as a famous one as well. He has worked behind the scenes. He worked with the George W. Bush campaign. He worked in the Bush administration. He's sort of an energy lawyer. He's worked in the Department of Energy before. Democrats already coming out at him today about a big oil kind of candidate out there. But as you mentioned, he has not run for public office, and this time he's going to go up against a former 2-time governor in North Carolina, and Roy Cooper, who started in the House and Senate in this state all the way back in the 80s, was an attorney general for 4 terms, and then was a governor for 2 terms. So he is not in office right now. It's the first time since 1986 that he hasn't been in office, so it's going to be quite a matchup.
This race is expected to be one of the most expensive Senate contests, and a Democrat has not won a Senate seat, it's worth noting, in North Carolina since 2008, which is also the last time a Democratic nominee won the state for their presidential race. That was Barack Obama. Walk us through why this contest actually might be the best chance Democrats have to flip a Senate seat.
Yeah, there's a lot of things that are in their favor. As we mentioned, Roy Cooper is extraordinarily well known in this state. He was, by all accounts, a popular governor. It's not to say Republicans obviously did not like him, but his approval ratings were good when he left office, especially after going through COVID times where he had to, shut down the state essentially for some period of time. But Michael Whatley is not known to a large portion of North Carolina. So he's got a lot of work ahead of him there, and that could give Roy Cooper a big advantage, being on the ballot for so long in North Carolina, being well known and fairly well liked. Also, since that 2008 races have gotten much closer in North Carolina, 3 points or less over the last few cycles. 2016 was sort of an outlier there, but Tom Tillis's last election in 2020, it was less than 2 points that separated them. And as you mentioned, it will likely go down as the most expensive race in U.S. history when this is over. North of $500 million, could go well above that with Trump endorsing Michael Whatley now. So I would be shocked if this race is separated by 3 points or more.
And so, Tim, what issues are expected to dominate the race? Is this going to be a referendum on how voters feel about the Trump agenda and, things like mass deportation?
Yeah, so like many states now in this modern era of politics, it has been nationalized in North Carolina. So I do think the referendum on Donald Trump is going to be a big part of it. I also think on the other side of this that there's going to be this connecting Roy Cooper to Joe Biden and that administration. So we're going to see this sort of nationalization. But there are some sort of local national issues that I think are going to be a big deal. Roy Cooper was in office when Hurricane Helene hit the western part of North Carolina. Republicans have hit him for not responding well enough. Michael Whatley is on that FEMA council that is supposed to do something about FEMA in the western, nationally, but we don't know what that's going to mean. And so there'll be that. Also, this whole Medicaid battle up in Washington, D.C., the big, beautiful bill. Roy Cooper helped usher in Medicaid expansion. Will it go away in North Carolina expansion? It's going to be a huge fight.
Okay, a whole lot, and we'll be asking you more about it as the weeks and months go by. Thanks very much, Tim Boyum. Thank you all for joining us for this episode of The Big Deal. We'll see you next week. Stay tuned to your local station.
Friday nights, The Big Deal with Errol Lewis, where Spectrum News' local political journalists break down the most important issues shaping our nation.
Here's the deal. People need a place to explore national issues that have an impact on their community. To understand those issues better, we're bringing together our team of local political journalists from across the country to break down what's happening. So join us every week to catch up on the key stories making a big difference across the nation and in your local community.
Watch The Big Deal with Errol Lewis Friday nights at 9 Eastern, 8 Central on Spectrum News Plus. Available on all of your favorite devices exclusively on Spectrum.
Are you ready for the ultimate entertainment experience? Spectrum is bringing together the streaming apps you love. Plus, live TV for sports, entertainment, and news. All in one place, across your devices. So no matter when or where you are, it's all here. Spectrum.
Weather can be beautiful, inconvenient, and at times powerful. And it affects everything we do. At Spectrum News Plus, our weather experts update you with the information and the context you need so you can better plan your day. And we do it every 10 minutes. We're the calm in the storm. Weather on the Ones on Spectrum News Plus, exclusively on Spectrum. And get your weather anytime on the Spectrum News app. Spectrum News Plus. Local stories, connecting communities. Streaming now on the Spectrum News app and free with your Spectrum subscription.